Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission, well, it's a big one. We're heading back about 3,500 years to really unpack the Great Pyramid of Giza, the GPG.
Right. It's just such an incredible structure. You look at it, and even now, it almost defies logic.
It really does. And that's what we want to do today, dig into how they actually pulled this off. We're talking about this colossal monument built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BC.
And the scale is just hard to grasp.
Yeah.
Originally 147 meters tall. The weight, an estimated 6 million tons. It's the largest of the three main pyramids there on the Nile's west bank.
6 million tons. It just blows your mind. So our goal here is to figure out how ancient Egyptians managed this, moving these enormous stones without, cranes or bulldozers or even standard wheels.
And crucially, what are the big mysteries that still remain? We want to give you, the listener, the core facts, the stuff you really need to know.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. First things first, why build it? What was the actual purpose?
Okay, so the historical consensus is really solid on this. These pyramids, they were tombs, just absolutely massive, incredibly complex tombs.
Built for the pharaohs, right, for their afterlife.
Precisely. The ancient Egyptians had this deep belief in the afterlife. The pharaoh needed everything for that journey: food, treasures, the body preserved. The pyramid was the ultimate insurance policy for immortality.
Okay, but here's where some confusion comes in. Because when they really got inside the Great Pyramid itself, it was, well, pretty empty, wasn't it?
That's true. Relatively speaking, they found basically 3 minor relics and that huge empty stone sarcophagus, which everyone assumes was Khufu's.
So that emptiness, that's what fuels some of the, let's say, fringe theories, like it was a power plant or a giant granary.
Exactly. Because there wasn't a treasure room filled with gold inside the main structure, people let their imaginations run wild. But honestly, archaeologists and historians, they pretty much dismiss those ideas.
Why so confidently?
Because you have to look at the entire Giza complex. You've got the smaller pyramids, the temples nearby, these huge pits where ceremonial boats were buried. It all fits perfectly with funerary practices. The whole setup screams tomb. The alternative theories just don't stack up against that weight of evidence.
Right. The context is key. So it's a gigantic, super secure tomb. Now, the construction, this is where it feels almost impossible. They built this thing in maybe 20 years, handling stones from, 2.5 tons up to 80 tons. That's like multiple elephants worth of weight.
And again, crucially, no standard wheels for moving heavy loads. They had potter's wheels, sure, but not for hauling these massive blocks.
This makes the logistics seem staggering.
They really were. But before we get into the how, we need to clear up probably the biggest myth about who built it.
Ah, yes. The idea that it was thousands upon thousands of slaves whipped into action.
That's the popular image, but the evidence, it points completely the other way. It was not built by slaves.
Okay, that's a huge point. So who actually did the work?
We're talking about a large workforce, maybe 20,000 to 30,000 people. But they were skilled laborers. They were organized, they were well-fed, and they likely saw this as a massive national project, something done out of loyalty, maybe even religious duty, to the pharaoh.
That completely reframes it. Not oppression, but maybe like national service on a grand scale.
Yeah.
But how do we know they weren't slaves? Is there actual proof?
Oh, absolutely. This is really fascinating. Archaeologists have uncovered the workers' village, Hayt El Ghurab, it's called, just south of the plateau.
And what did they find there?
Well, evidence of their lives.
Right.
For starters, their diet. Analysis of animal bones shows they ate a lot of meat, especially prime beef. Much better food than the average person at the time.
Okay, you don't usually fatten up slaves with prime cuts.
Exactly. And even more telling is the medical care. They found skeletons with bones that were broken, serious fractures like legs and arms, but they were expertly set and had healed properly.
Wow, so they had dedicated doctors looking after them?
It seems so. They were investing in these workers' recovery. These weren't disposable people. They were valuable, skilled assets essential to the project. That points to a paid, respected labor force, not slaves.
Okay, that's settled then. Skilled, motivated, well-cared-for workers. Around 20,000 of them. Now, logistics. Getting the stone. 5.5 million tons of limestone alone, you said.
Plus granite for the inner chambers, yeah. A huge amount of material.
Where did it all come from?
Most of the main limestone blocks were quarried pretty close by, right there on the Giza Plateau. That made sense. But the really fine white limestone for the outer casing that came from Tura across the Nile, and the massive granite blocks.
The 80-ton ones?
Those giants, yes. They came all the way from Aswan, about 800 kilometers south.
800 kilometers. How on earth did they move an 80-ton block that far without trucks or trains?
Well, they had something almost as good, the Nile River. They would load these massive blocks onto huge wooden barges, probably during the annual flood season when the water levels were highest. They might have even dug canals to bring the water right up close to the construction site.
Clever. Using the natural environment to do the heaviest lifting.
Exactly. Water transport was key for the long distances.
But what about moving them on site? Once they're off the barge, you're dragging them across sand. The friction must have been immense.
It would be, on dry sand. But this is where we see some real ancient engineering genius. They likely used wooden sledges, placing the stones on top.
Sledges, okay. But still pulling tons over sand.
Right, but not dry sand. This is the really cool part. The wet sand trick.
Wet sand? You mean just pouring water in front of the sledge?
Sort of, but it's more precise than that. Research actually looking at ancient Egyptian depictions and doing modern experiments showed something amazing. If you wet the sand just right.
What do you mean just right?
There's a sweet spot. Not too much water, not too little. About 2 to 5% water content. If you get that ratio, the water creates tiny bridges between the sand grains, capillary bridges they're called,
Right.
And that binds the sand together just enough to make it firm. It drastically reduces the friction. We're talking like cutting the required pulling force in half.
Seriously, just by adding a little bit of water.
Yep. Suddenly, moving those multi-ton blocks with teams of workers becomes, well, achievable. It's an incredibly elegant solution based on, basic physics.
That is brilliant. Okay, so wet sand solves the horizontal movement. What about vertical? How do you get an 80-ton block 147 meters up in the air? No cranes.
This is the other huge puzzle. The most widely accepted theory involves ramps. Lots and lots of ramps.
What kind of ramps? Straight up, wrapping around.
Well, that's been debated for ages. But a major discovery a few years back at a quarry, Wadi al-Jarf, shed some light. They found remains of a 4,500-year-old ramp system.
And what did it look like?
It seems to have been a very steep, straight ramp, but with staircases on either side. And there were holes for big wooden posts.
So not just a smooth slope.
Right. The idea is that teams could use ropes looped around these posts, maybe using the stairs for footing, to haul the sledges up the central slope more effectively. It gives them leverage points.
Okay, that makes sense. A more sophisticated ramp system. Were ramps the only method, though?
Probably not exclusively. Especially for finer positioning or maybe the upper layers, they likely use levers, too. Think about the shadoof.
That device they used for lifting water from the Nile?
Exactly. A simple lever with a counterweight. It's plausible they scaled up that kind of principle, using counterweights and levers to lift blocks incrementally, especially once they were higher up.
So we've got a picture. Skilled workers, Nile transport, wet sand for sliding, sophisticated ramps, maybe levers.
Yeah.
It sounds like we solved it.
It sounds like it. The pieces fit together logically. You can see how each step could have worked.
There's always a but with the pyramids, isn't there?
There is. And it's a big one. It comes back to the timing.
The 20-year time frame.
Yes. If you take that 20-year estimate seriously and you calculate the number of stones, well, the pace is just staggering.
How staggering.
To finish in 20 years, they would have needed to quarry, transport, shape, lift, and place a stone roughly every 3 minutes.
Wait, every 3 minutes.
Every 3 minutes of every hour of every day, year-round for 20 years straight.
That seems impossible.
Uh-huh.
Even with the ramps and wet sand. 3 minutes per stone, some weighing tons, lifted hundreds of feet.
That's the core mystery. The sheer speed required. It pushes the limits of what seems feasible with the ramp and lever technology we've just described. It suggests maybe an efficiency or a technique or just an organizational level that we still don't fully grasp.
So the how makes sense, but the how fast is the real sticking point.
Precisely. And what makes it even more incredible is that they weren't just throwing these blocks up quickly. The precision is astounding.
In the alignment.
Yeah. The whole pyramid is aligned to the cardinal directions north, east, south, west, almost perfectly. The error is tiny, something like 1/15 of a degree.
How could they possibly achieve that without compasses or GPS?
The best theory involves astronomy, probably using the autumn equinox, when day and night are exactly equal length.
How would that help?
On the equinox, the sun rises due east and sets due west. By tracking the shadow of a vertical stick, a gnomon, throughout that specific day, they could mark a true east-west line. From that, they could derive a perfect north-south line. It's a simple but incredibly accurate method using the sun.
Wow. Okay, that's clever. We should probably quickly mention that Orion theory here, too.
Ah, yes, the Orion correlation theory. The idea that the three Giza pyramids map the stars in Orion's belt.
Sounds poetic, but is it accurate?
Well, it's popular in fringe circles, but mainstream Egyptology and astronomy don't support it. For a couple of key reasons. One, the pyramids weren't built simultaneously. Khufu's was first, then Khafre's, then Menkaur's over decades.
So they wouldn't align to stars from one single point in time.
Right. And second, the stars themselves move over time due to the Earth's wobble axial precession. If you calculate where Orion's belt was 4,500 years ago, the alignment with the pyramids isn't nearly as exact as the theory claims. It just doesn't hold up to scrutiny.
Okay, so forget Orion. Back to reality. Incredible precision achieved using astronomy, but still that baffling speed problem. So wrapping this up for the listener, what are the absolute key takeaways?
Okay, number one. The Great Pyramid was definitely a tomb, part of a huge funerary complex, not a power plant, not a granary.
Number two, it was built by skilled, paid, well-treated Egyptian workers, not slaves. Big myth busted there.
Number three, they used ingenious engineering hacks, water transport via the Nile, the clever wet sand trick to reduce friction, and sophisticated ramps and maybe lever systems for lifting.
But number four, the biggest takeaway perhaps, the speed. Placing a stone every 3 minutes remains the central, unsolved mystery. Our current understanding of their techniques doesn't quite account for that incredible pace.
And it's worth remembering how it originally looked. We see it today as this sort of rough, sand-colored structure. But originally...
Had that smooth white casing. Huh?
Exactly. Highly polished white limestone. It would have gleamed in the sun. Just imagine this massive, shining, perfectly geometric mountain on the edge of the desert. The stability, by the way, partly comes from using mortar, especially in the upper sections. It wasn't just dry stacked blocks all the way up.
A truly awe-inspiring sight. So that final thought for our listeners to chew on, given that 3-minute problem, that disconnect between the known techniques and the required speed, what does that tell us?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Does it point to lost techniques? An organizational genius that's just hard for us to conceive of today? Or maybe there are still construction secrets literally built into the pyramid structure that we haven't found yet.
Could future technology, maybe advanced scanning or something, reveal more about how they manage that incredible speed and precision? It really challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities.
It certainly does. The Great Pyramid remains a testament to human ingenuity, but also perhaps to knowledge we may have lost along the way.